Welcome to This Commerce Life. We are an unscripted podcast dedicated to small businesses and entrepreneurs in the retail and consumer packaged goods space in Canada and the United States.
I'm Phil Chang, co-host and co-founder.
And I'm Kenny Benici, co-host and co-founder of This Commerce Life.
Our love is the journey to retail, and our passion is sharing that with you every week.
Check one, check two.
Oh, yeah, we're good. We're good. There we go.
You know why? You have to say check one, check two. That's why they say that, because now we know. You say, can I hear you? Can I hear you? Nobody. Check one, check two.
And suddenly.
See?
It works.
Everything works.
Phil doesn't think I'm a musician, but I know check one, check two.
I love knowing these things. It's helpful as I navigate different layers of technology.
Yeah, that would be actually scary though if that actually works. So that's yeah, we'll just leave that. We'll just leave that one alone.
I love that so much.
It's like banging the side of the TV. It worked.
Yeah.
Check one, check two.
It's true. Oh man, it's Karen. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys.
Yeah.
It's funny. I realized it's a bit of a time warp, right? Because I think we got the introduction from
Jaren.
Yeah, before CHFA, but like that kind of 2 weeks leading up to the show was like.
Yeah, no, that.
Right? It was just
it's a blur. Lead up to trade shows like that's always like a blur.
Especially when it's been the first one in a couple years. Like it's almost like you forget what you have to do. You forget how much you have to get done before, and then once you get in the group, you're thinking, "Oh shit, man, I got to talk to people." Like,
yeah,
I that's a handshake. Oh, that was a hug. Oh my God, what's going on?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, fully. I was speaking at the Globe Forum a few weeks ago, and it was sort of one of the first events where there was a lot of people. So they had pins that you could select: green for like go ahead, contact; yellow for like maybe ask first, and red for like do not touch me.
I guess it's kind of smart.
I kind of felt like that's a good system because not everybody's super comfortable all the time, even in normal times with big greetings.
Yeah, I just found this time more than we've talked about this a few times. I just thought this time it seemed like even people who I know were huggers. Like I'm Italian, so we're just perpetual. It's not gonna not happen. But even this time, I know people who I know are not that we're like hugging. We're thinking, okay, obviously we've missed people. Like anybody outside of family is a treat right now. Like, wow,
exactly. I'm not a hugger, but I was hugging people.
Yeah, it just seemed to be that type of time, right? Well, 2 years of it is tough, right? It's a different run.
Yeah, I was glad to be at the show.
Yeah, so was I.
Wow. That's it. It was really cool. It was cool to be at the show. It was cool to see everybody live. And then you're right. Like, I was surprised. I was surprised to like there were lots of people with masks on, but I don't think anybody said no, don't hug.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair.
A couple not handshakes went for the elbow. But nothing like it was just a very instant reaction and pretty much honestly probably more funny to handshake than not. But still, like, no, I found people were massively receptive to sort of have touch again, where physical contact with people was a treat. It was nice.
Yeah. I think people were ready for it. Yeah,
I think so too. Maybe that break sort of in a lot of ways, maybe it's it's not a good thing, the break itself, but
yes,
sometimes these events change maybe how we look at life and people, and
a fundamental change.
I think so. Hopefully for the better.
Well, yeah, I think. I mean, it's thinking about the whole thing. I won't lie. Like during 2020, I actually probably socialized more with friends than I did before the pandemic because my schedule's crazy. So suddenly that everybody was interacting via this mechanism, I had more social engagement during 2020 than I did between 2017 and 2020.
Yeah, I think I'd probably agree with you. It was just different. It was like different. 9 hours a day of video or phone, and you thought, wow, this is like freaking exhausting. It was bad, you know, it's hard up in person, but like I found this one was, but mostly because you know, headphones don't work, mic doesn't work, camera doesn't work, connections don't work, can't find the link. Thinking, holy man, like how much more can go wrong on a stupid call?
Oh my gosh.
No, it is true. I mean, aside from my own awkwardness with some technology, I've been very fortunate that the troubles have been minor.
Yeah, all good. All good.
You know, like I think my favorite interactions during this has been you know, with family, where like I've tried for years to get family on, you know, things like Zoom or you know, because it's hard, right? Like family reunions, you know, besides your own kind of siblings, like, you know, if you're trying to get aunts and uncles and cousins, and it's hard, right? And we live all the way around North America, so traveling, and I've tried for years, but nobody's ever wanted to do it. So, you know, like now all of a sudden it was like, oh, you know, everybody's in for a Zoom, right? So it takes you like a week to coordinate rather than a year, right?
Exactly.
But you put up with the you know, the one uncle who you can just see his forehead.
There's only so many ways you can say move the camera forward, uncle. Move the camera forward. Leave it where it is. You look great. Your chin looks wonderful today.
You know what? But I was so grateful for like things like martini nights with friends of mine in Europe that I don't get to see, and that my normal schedule would preclude. And so for me, it was also getting to see people that aren't attached to my regular like business life, let's say, like the people that have been part of my life for a longer or different parts of it. So I wouldn't want to repeat 2020 in for all those reasons, but I was super grateful for how it allowed me to reconnect with a lot of people that I really love and care about.
It brought even different connections. You know, I've met more kids and dogs. And husbands and wives and partners than I ever would have. And it's actually kind of nice. So now, you know, kids walk into the video, like we all stop. Hey, how's it going? And they're all used to it too. I mean, it's kind of just made it a little more, I don't know. It's goofy. It made it more human in a non-human. I don't, you know, like there's no physicality, but all of a sudden it became human. Like a kid walking in, thinking, hi, what's going on?
Yeah.
All excited.
When someone's pet lands in the middle of the screen, or someone flips a filter they're not familiar with, and suddenly they're a cat. You know?
Exactly. You know, or someone's yelling, no, I don't need anything. You're like, okay, I guess wife, husband, partner was yelling something out, whatever, all good. I don't know, it just made it a little more, it's funny, made it a little more human in a time where there was no human interaction.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was an important thing to do, because I don't think the end of, like for us, certainly we like the video meeting landscape hasn't really lessened. Like it's become the most efficient way to have like a number of team meetings that would take much longer to coordinate if we had to do it all in person. So I think humanizing it all a bit, so we don't just think we're only this part of ourselves, is really important.
No, true.
It's I think that was the other piece, the in-person piece I appreciated, because I had no sense of height for people that I'd met.
Everybody's
you know, 'cause everybody's the same height, right? Like so
well, no, but everybody was saying, oh, you have legs. You're thinking, I guess I never thought of that. Yes, I guess we all have legs.
It throws you off, right? Because people were grabbing me to say hello, and you know, you turn and you look down, and then you look up. Right?
You're like, oh, right. There's so much more.
Well, you were saying that, like, we call one of our listeners, she's a dear friend, we call her the boss. And Phil met the boss for the first time. Phil didn't realize the boss is like, you know, 4.5 feet, 5 foot nothing, right? And then he met Arjun from Nature's Path, who's well into 6 feet. So you're thinking, when you're talking to these people online, they're all my height. They're all the same.
Well, when I saw Arjun from far away, I was like, oh, that's Arjun. And then I kept walking closer, and he just kept getting tall.
There's a lot of Arjun there.
Where does he end?
On Zoom, like.
It's funny, though, because you just don't get that perspective. I mean, it's like you do. And like just Phil said, you walk to other people and you're thinking, wow, I didn't realize you were that short or that tall or whatever it was. Right? Anyway, it's all good. Thank God we're hopefully getting out of hopefully we're going to do more CHFA kind of things and continue this, but less this and more the other if possible.
Yeah, well, it's looking like that. It's, like Planted Expo's coming up, and
Yeah.
a number of other, like Future Food Tech just happened, and Expo West just happened, and a grocery and specialty show just happened. So
so everything's rattling off, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Food show that happened like right after.
No.
Okay.
No, and I certainly it's definitely on our radar. This year, it's been a crazy year since moving into our new facility in January of last year, and all the things that have happened between then and now. So it was on our radar, but it wasn't really within our capacity to do at the time.
Right.
Yeah. The things have been like on a, to me, they feel both simultaneously slow and fast.
Right.
Like it's a weird place to exist, but
I think everybody actually understands that. That's the scary part.
I know, right?
Right.
So on one hand, I feel like we're 2 years behind where we should be, but at the same time, I feel like, oh my God, like we hit that plant in January of last year. We actually still have to finish the build out for it, because in March of last year, we got the interest from Save on Foods, and that like caused a whole switch in energy to have to happen. And so it's it's both slow and fast all at the same time.
Amazing.
There's your segue, Phil, into an introduction as we continue talking and nobody knows who we're talking to or what we're talking about.
So we have Karen McAthy on, and she's the CEO of Lumi Foods. Lumi makes things that you probably know that are wonderfully delicious. So Blue Heron is probably the one that I don't know if it's the most famous. It's definitely the most well known to me.
That's all good. That's what we talked about before.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
talked about that before. It's all good. But yeah, so and Karen is also the author of The Art of Plant-Based Cheese Making. I think amongst other things. So anyway, probably a bit of a lame intro, but just wanted to get us going because Karen's going to talk about who she is. But we're super excited. Kenny and I both we both know Blue Heron.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Saw you at the show as well, and it's delicious. And we're excited that you're here because we'd love to hear about kind of your journey, how you got to where you were, and
and tell us why you got to where you were, what brought you into this direction. So really the next 45 minutes is your show. Phil and I'll sit back, maybe have a coffee, just relax and let you go to it.
It's so thanks for having me here, guys. I really appreciate it. And it's always kind of fun to get to share some of the story stuff or talk to people in the industry who just, there's always things inside the industries that we're all in that we're all a little bit more familiar with than not. But it's been kind of a crazy ride. How did I even get to Blue Heron? I'm a chef by trade. So I've spent a good chunk of my last 16 years working in the food industry, in restaurant kitchens and around them, and focusing. Okay, so she's going to take a little.
Nobody can see this, but
excellent.
The pet topic we talked about before, Karen had a pet crawling all over her head basically a second ago.
That's amazing.
Just for those who can't see us, because we're definitely Phil and I are meant for radio, not television.
We had a lady on early on who runs Einstein snacks. So she makes
nice,
dogs chia based dog snacks.
Yeah,
and she has a West Highland Terrier that just would not
leave her
alone. The entire time that we were talking to her, it was fine. And then as soon as we hit record, the dog wouldn't leave her alone. Like
he's like, no,
on the show, needed to, so don't worry about it. It's all good.
All good.
Excellent. Because I feel like she's probably going to do that again.
Probably.
So I myself have been vegan or plant-based for quite a long time, and as a chef, that from a professional perspective, that was always a little bit challenging, because for a long time I was not working in restaurants that were fully like in that path, so like cooking, doing all the things that chefs have to do. But in 2013 I had the opportunity to sort of marry my personal ethos and and my career path together. And that really was the step off to how I ended up in vegan cheese. So I wanted to find something to put. We had a kitchen garden. We were growing a large percentage of our own food. We were fermenting a ton of things ourselves. We were working with foragers. And so when I was creating a sharing board for my guests, I really wanted to offer a cheese solution that was deserving to sit alongside things that have been grown and cared for and all of this. And at the time on the market, I couldn't find anything that I thought that I would put on those boards out there. So I started looking for answers. And so I've actually, even before becoming vegan, I'm actually allergic to dairy. So I've never really had a romance about cheese or like this thing about it that it turns out a lot of people do. But in this process of trying to find solutions for my guests and doing research and finding my way to what I'm doing, I fell in love with the art of cheese making, like that it's this magical realm of transformation. And so at the time, when I was trying to find solutions that exist, that, to see if there's anything existed, I first started looking online to see if there were recipes from the vegan communities. Was there something there that people are doing? And a lot of the stuff I was finding I didn't like, and recipes were written without explaining how things work or why they work or why you're choosing to put them together. That's not, my brain doesn't work that way, so I struggle with that. And so there was absolutely part accident. And then there was also this like, oh, I'm going to take a look at how the dairy cheese industry makes different kinds of cheeses, because obviously they know some things. And it was in looking at that and going, oh, this is about transformation. This is about taking X thing that has protein, fats, and carbohydrates and transforming it into Y thing. And it's about those things in between that make it do that thing. So it's not, for me, it was like a huge moment of going, oh, the bacteria and the enzymes. Wait a minute. They're doing all of this work. And then the humans do some other stuff, affinaging and all the rest of it. But it was this moment of going, oh, wait, we're actually really talking about a transformative process here. We're not really exclusively, even though the Codex Alimentarius says, by definition, animal dairy, but really we're talking about the transformation of some sort of substrate that has proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, and transforming it into something else. And that for me was the step off. That was the like, oh my God, that's what I want to look at. And so when I was at a restaurant called Gray's, I actually started my first cheeses there. We got featured in the Globe and Mail pretty early on and did a season at the farmers market with that iteration of things. And then that led to me getting invited to write a book, which was the most bizarre. My sous chef and we were part of a big event for the Vancouver Farmers Market. And there was 300 people at this event, and we were plating up our little savory bite, and that was featuring some of our cheeses. And someone stopped by and handed my sous chef a card and said, do you think she would want to write a book? And
just out of the blue, like,
yeah, basically. And he turned around and said, hey, Karen, someone wants to talk to you about writing a book. And I looked at him and I looked at them. I said, not right now.
Yeah, this is a bad time. Can you tell?
Like,
that's
time
awesome.
and place.
Yeah.
I was like, just put the card over there. Like, I don't have any capacity to think about this conversation. And so that began my engagement with New Society Publishers and the team, the great little publishing house from Gabriola Island. And they publish a lot of really cool and great books around a lot of things that you don't really find from mainstream publishers so readily. But that was really the first major step off. And it was really that moment of realizing that thousands of years of craft in the dairy cheese world was really around this relationship between bacteria and yeasts and molds and this thing milk, and then learning about how many of those bacteria that are now used in cultures actually have residency on our skin. Like that there's this wild relationship that's evolved over time, that's led to things that we call cheese. And so for me, that was the real moment where I started to fall in love with the idea of cheese in a way that I had never really cared about at all before.
Well, if you're allergic to dairy, cheese is not the first go-to, right? On the menu. Absolutely. So I get it. Yeah. Wow.
But for me, it was around that relationship. And so that really became the step off. And then when the restaurant closed and I moved on to the next one, I was working on the research for the book, but I was still getting a lot of emails and requests for the cheeses. And I was still developing new versions for the things I was writing in the first edition of the book. And so it just forced me to have to make a decision. Do I continue down this path as a chef, or do I go in this direction instead and do something about this idea? And so that I actually connected with a former restaurant guest of mine who's now one of my original business partners, Colin Medhurst. And that led into the creation of Blue Heron in 2016, 2017. I think that part there was what led to the eventual opening of a little retail storefront on Vancouver's Main Street. And that wasn't even the intent. We were actually looking for a facility for production, but Vancouver's real estate was very hard and we had a very small budget. And so we sort of found a space that we were able to okay, let's sort of patchwork our way around this space to make it make sense. And so we opened the storefront in winter of 2018, like in February. And our first weekend, we opened at 12 and we were sold out in an hour and a half, like something crazy. We had a lineup that went up to like Main and Broadway and around the corner.
So where was it? Where was the location? Like, Karen, where was it?
So we had a little Main, and we were around near Main and 7th, Main and 8th. In that there's a Pizza Wedge building.
Yeah, I know where you are.
Just north of Main and Broadway. Yeah.
Okay.
So we were there. And our opening night, we had this huge lineup. We had a couple meet in the lineup who are now together, who got married.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Cool.
All because of your cheese. That's kind of cool.
Well, she was there because of the cheese. He was walking by and saw a lineup and decided
still because of the cheese. Take credit. Move on. Still about the cheese.
And so and right away, right away we were hit with well more demand than capacity. And
but that's a 2-block lineup, 2.5 block lineup for a commodity that really wasn't. Not plant-based cheese, even 4 years ago. I mean, that's like an eternity ago. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's been like so much movement in the sector since that time. But 4 years ago, it was still very few people
for sure
making a reach. And our focus has always been very much on culturing and very much on limited ingredients and very much on developing a cheese making process for the materials we work with.
Right.
So rather than always just trying to veganize a thing, we actually work with the materials and the cultures to try to make cheeses that stand on their own characteristics. And some of them, we have a couple that people often sort of will use dairy reference terms because it feels familiar, but we're not necessarily approaching it from the perspective of, I want to make a vegan version of X.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Is because most people, my vegan friends will do this. You got to try it. Tastes like chicken. And my usual response is, listen, I have no issue trying it, but what the hell do you know what chicken tastes like?
Yeah.
So what are you benching against? Your version of what you think chicken is, or my version of what chicken is?
Yeah.
So my question to you is going to be that you don't eat cheese, not because you don't necessarily like cheese, but because you can't eat cheese.
Yes.
So how are you making cheese? Like, how do you know what I'm going to like as a cheese? I like cheese. but I would have no issue trying. I've had your cheese. I don't have an issue trying certain vegan cheeses. I've had some I will never do again.
Yeah.
No, super, and that's super fair. Yeah.
So how do you make, like, how do you know what the hell you're making? I know you get the science and the chemistry, but
yeah, like,
well,
to be clear, you got it right, but
it's 100%. No, she's spot on. Like, it's not, there's no doubt,
man.
What, like, seriously?
Yeah.
So this is my invitation to the skeptic, or the question, and your question is actually my favorite question that I get asked, because like anything new, we always measure it against our internal expectations, right? Or what our reference terms are.
Right.
But in the world of dairy cheese, there are thousands of types of cheese.
And taste profiles all over the place.
Yeah. And so a taleggio is nothing like a camembert, which is nothing like a 1 year, like a 1 year old cheddar, which is nothing like an American style Monterey Jack, right? Yeah. So I always start there, because I'm like, well, what precludes different cheese existing that's made from different materials then? If that wide range of possibility exists, what precludes new cheese? And
nothing,
so then nothing does then.
Just my attitude that it's not made from dairy. Do you know what I mean? That would be it.
That becomes the difference. And so for me, that's why we've been so emphatic about staying true to the process we use, which is we focus on species of bacteria and yeast. We're in a project with Protein Industries Canada right now, where we're working with the University of Alberta on refining work that we've actually been doing, but we're really working to identify species that will work with specific types of plant materials that will amplify flavor and develop aroma profiles in the same way that culture libraries have been developed for dairy cheese.
For sure.
And so
what a smart approach.
It's been for me personally, that's actually been the only way it made sense for me to pursue cheese making. I wasn't super interested in combining nutritional yeast and coconut oil and other things, and making, product types that do certain things that are valuable for people looking for replacements. And I'm not casting aspersions there, right. But for me, I'm a nerd, and for me, it was just so clear on a personal level that there was this opportunity to actually create new cheeses, like really focus on what this material can do, what are the prospects there, and how do we elevate that. And so one of our cheeses, we call it the cormorant because it's ash washed, and so I named it after the shorebird that resides on the West Coast here. But it was a finalist in the Made in Vancouver Awards last year, and it's unique in itself. There isn't really a comparison direct to a dairy type for it.
But what a smart way to do it, Karen. Like, I'm serious. I think that I think this is awesome, because honestly, the typical approach is you're trying to mimic something that already exists, as opposed to what you said is, I get the science, I understand the chemistry, I know what the process is.
Yeah.
So, maybe I can make, where, to your example, there's 6 ingredients that'll make a multitude of cheeses. I'm open to 100 now. And what the 100 do is allow me a gorgonzola type or a Stilton, and it allows me a cheddar and maybe a mild mozzarella, like whatever you want. But it's I didn't know anything about your story. Like,
yes, and the thing is, we do make a really great version of a blue cheese with blue Roquefort, because some of the mold type spores really like some of those materials really well. And we make one that we haven't produced this year because we need to build a specific with the molds, you have to build a specific, sort of control them. Right. But we make a cheese called Ardea Blue that has actually, when people who thought they didn't like blue cheese tried it, they liked it because the flavor profile was different, but still also recognizably, like it was still recognizable to them. But for me, it's not been about the intent to try to mimic. It's been about, will that work with that? And then what's the outcome? And then what do we do with that outcome? Like, how do we evolve that outcome into something?
What a smart approach.
So that's been the foundation of it. And now we're stepping off through our projects with the protein. We lead a project with Protein Industries Canada, in which Save On Foods and Crush Dynamics, a very cool company here in BC that uses post-wine industry materials and reconstitutes them in the form of purees that can be used as an ingredient. And we're working with them in a consortium project. And their material has a lot of interesting prospects. And it was one of the key reasons I was always been interested in what they were doing. But we're currently testing it in washes for some of our cheeses. And I'm very excited about one of our July launches coming up, because the impact of it is offering something quite special. But there's other things happening in the vegan cheese sector which are pretty so I think there's a pocket of the industry that's sort of like all buzzing around it and quite excited. And I think maybe a little more broadly, it's not as well known, but there's quite a push right now from synthetic biology efforts and precision fermentation users to produce animal-free casein and whey as an ingredient for use in vegan or plant-based cheeses or animal-free dairy cheeses. And so what these folks do is they use vectors, whether it's a yeast or a fungus or a bacteria, to produce the proteins. And the technology is not new. Actually, it's just a different application. The technology has been around for many years in biomedical applications, and even in the cheese making industry, where it's been used to produce chymosin as a microbial rennet for dairy cheese making. So that technology is now being used in these other ways. And there's companies called like Perfect Day is one of them. They've raised over $950 million in this effort. There's a company in Israel called Remilk that's raised over $120 million.
Wow.
And the focus of these types of companies is largely to become a B2B ingredient supplier.
For sure.
And so we will always be open, like always be focused on like, how do we create new cheeses? We're also, part of our research is also leading us down this realm to do some prototype testing with some of these ingredients. Because the thing is, as some of them have found, is that protein alone does not make the cheese. So if you're isolating a protein that way, you still have to reconstitute a matrix of protein that contains lipids and carbohydrates, right? It can't just be, we stick protein in there, the casein in there, and now voila, we've got mozzarella.
No, but it's super interesting, right? Huh.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild time in the sector.
So I honestly, all I'm because I don't know shit about vegan cheeses really, outside of, again, trying yours, is that I always think it's cashews, a few other things, might be this, that, because I don't go down these paths that someone's actually figured, okay, how can I actually make something from non-dairy that will resemble a whey? Then you open yourself up to what they call it, cottage cheese. A multitude of other things. Never mind that part. Then as you go further into, like, you can really start. Wow, you can really start bending stuff, right?
Yes, yeah, and not using a lot of crazy ingredients. That's the thing, that it doesn't. It's going to all sound a little sci-fi, but it's really at the end of the day, it's some of the things that are being done. One of the companies we're interacting with, they are finding ways to close the loop on a large part of food waste that would otherwise be discarded in Canada, and using it as part of their process. And so there's some really creative solutions that are evolving out of this new approach. And yeah, so for us, it's a great fit because one, it's still a way to really hold dear principles of cheese making, and still do something, I think, that's unique and special, that will evolve from it. So
to me, though, I think you like, it is like sci-fi, right? Because what you've done, like, in a lot of ways, right? Because the tried and true formula in a lot of, kind of vegan or meatless alternatives is copy paste, right? To what Kenny alluded to earlier, right? Is you make it and it looks sort of the same,
sort of close, kind of tastes
and
similar.
if you didn't know, then it's pretty close, right? But you've done instead of doing that, you've really taken it and like turned it into its own dimension, right? Because you've really like now. I just love it because I think now it's sort of a blueprint for a whole new set of flavors that we've never had before, right? Like
brand new to cheese. Like it might be just now a whole new cheese market that explodes, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to look at cheese necessarily
aren't, like a traditional cheese.
And I don't care if it's dairy at that point. What I want to taste is a good cheese, not a cheese knockoff, which is unfortunate. Unfortunately, I don't mean to pick on vegans, right? But unfortunately, you go down the path of knocking off. And my first intuition is don't knock off what you can't knock off.
Do
your own thing and create something. But I love the way you did. It's the same science. It's the same process. So it's going to give you, in essence, the same result. Yes, with a different base. I get that.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah.
No, but the process is the process.
I grabbed your
fascinating
Blue A Cumulus.
Oh yeah, the Blue A. Yeah.
So it's funny because I was actually with Kenny and we were grabbing some food for because I hate airplane food, right? And so I was out there and we grabbed some stuff and I didn't mean to. I was grabbing myself a little, so I got some crackers, I got some cold cuts so I could do a bit of charcuterie on the plane. Because I didn't want to eat plain food, and I grabbed Blue Heron, but to me I went, this looks like a great cheese, so I'm gonna grab this, but I didn't read it that closely. That was my first experience with Blue Heron, right? So
wild!
I got on a plane. I started eating this. I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing!
This is a good cheese. I've never heard of this cheese before. Is it Italian? Like, where's it from?
And then like I'm at that age where, like reading glasses gets everybody, right? So now I'm like, I need reading glasses because I need to understand. Like, I opened this thing because I thought I was getting cheese, but I don't know what I got. But this is kick ass, right? Like, so now I got to read the whole thing, and so but like whole different flavors, right? Like they were not, and I love that, right? Because it wasn't me going, oh look, she made a great fake cheddar, right? Because
cheddar-like substance.
Well, and I'm so glad you mentioned Cumulus because it's been a like the Cumulus style. We're getting ready to trademark the process and the name for it because that's actually it's a style of cheese that we make 4 iterations of. Blueberry is one of them, but we make a fig and wine, we make a fermented garlic scape, and we make a lemon pepper. But the whole premise of that cheese is that we make a matrix that has chickpea protein and coconut cream, and we ferment it, like culture it with a specific selection of cultures. So we're not using Rejuvelac and we're not using probiotic capsules, but we are using very specific species. Right. And it has its own standard criteria for how long it needs to do X. And it has its own set of characteristics that we so by definition, it's its own style. The Cumulus style of cheese is unique to what we do. And we were intentional in identifying it that way, rather than trying to say it's a Chev replacement or it's this kind of thing.
I love it. I love this idea. Wow.
So that was for us why we did that. Now, that said, it turns out that a cheddaring process actually can work pretty well in some plant-based applications. And so,
really?
Yeah, because of the way proteins break down and some of the elements of that. And so we do make a cheese that we call a mostarda that we're evaluating the name from. And the only reason we've ever sort of let it get a cheddar sort of notation to it is because every time we sample it, people will say, oh, that's like a cheddar. Oh, that reminds me of like this cheddar I had a few years ago. And it turns out that some of the process of cheddaring is very similar to actually how we make this thing.
How cool is that though?
And so it's been fascinating because it tells you how much work bacteria are doing in relationship to things like, you know, the enzymes they produce when they break down carbohydrate X, and then that impact on protein type whatever, and then all the transformation that happens when you break down proteins. So it's it's been really fascinating that from that realm. But we've been very, very mindful not to just say this is our vegan this or our that. We only use 2 dairy references. One is our almond ricotta, and again, because feedback from users has been, oh, that's like a ricotta. But our focus has really been on just developing our own sort of styles, and because what I found in sampling and tasting is when
how do you get
many
on your sampling?
It's like, I'm in Vancouver, he's not, so we don't care about him, but I could come down.
You can absolutely, we can send you some stuff, Phil.
I'm in Toronto, so that's the other
that's like a way far away though.
Well, we're about to be available in Toronto this year, and but we can we haven't, well, I'll be announcing.
You can't say
soon.
Yet.
I can't say yet. The paperwork's not signed yet.
Okay. If you're a retailer, get on this, will you? Like, I'll be there, and
seriously,
I'll be buying a lot of this stuff. Like, I also think that a lot of people I know would love this, right? Because a lot of people love cheese, except I seem to have lots of friends that are like, yeah, I like cheese, but I can't have that around you guys because we won't be friends anymore. Like, there are all sorts of reactions. So I feel like you've got something that's just gonna, anyway.
Yeah, no, it's and that's why we're excited about what we do. It does, because the vegan cheese sector though has gone down a road where many people are using they're just using words very easily and referencing stuff. It does pose a little bit of a challenge in that. But when we do sampling with folks, often I'll invite people to try, barring they don't have allergies, just like I would for any food.
Yep.
But I often invite them to try first before describing anything, because if you don't approach it with expectation of your own and what you think something is, you're often far more open-minded
100%.
about what you're
100%.
And I used to do it with when I was still a chef, and I'd done it before with some of my junior sous chefs. I would do literally blindfolded taste tests.
Right.
As if you eliminate the impact of your own noise, you will have a different experience than you might otherwise have. And that's not going to be true for everybody, but we've had a great deal of success. CHFA, for instance, where we were really reintroducing Le Bleuet, and because it's gone through a pretty significant redevelopment, it was almost instantaneous when we sort of had a team group and go, this is how we really introduce this cheese. And then the way people received it after that was it was almost diametrically opposed without that sort of introduction.
Right.
Like it was really dramatic to witness it. So, but I will readily acknowledge I gave it the wrong name. People are often confused that Le Bleuet means blueberry and not a blue cheese.
Oh, okay.
So we will be renaming it.
Because you're into cheese, like we're talking cheese. When you say that, I just think blue. Okay, I didn't think blueberry.
No,
but Le Bleuet is really blueberries, right? It's not.
Thank you, guys.
But it's a cheese, right? So what else am I gonna? I don't think blueberry cheese. I think blue cheese.
There are blueberries in it. Like if it was called Le Bleuet, like so if I had that on the plane and it didn't taste like blueberries, then I'd be like, what the heck happened to this, right? But
but at the same time, we've had some people try it and think that's not a blue cheese. I'm like, so errors happen.
All good.
So that's an error. I just don't think people are sophisticated enough. That's the way I
right. You know what? At the end of the day, if they try it and they like it, then move on.
Yeah.
Well, and that's just it, right?
Whatever.
So that's just it for us. Is like we want to make sure that people like it. And so we're working with lupini right now, which I'm incredibly excited about. It's such a special ingredient. And we're part of another PIC project around the Lupin platform, which is really about developing an ecosystem for the use of this ingredient.
Okay.
But I've been working with lupini for nearly 3 years, with engagement with some folks from the Netherlands. And the prospect it has for vegan cheese making is really incredible. We've made some really nice aged cheeses with it. We're now developing a couple of very cool products with it. So I'm actually very keen to have that land on shelves and share with people, because it produces very obvious cheesy umami aroma, and buttery. Like, it has a very buttery.
See, you need a chef to do this shit. See, that's the first thing. This is why you're going to win. First off, you talk really nice. Like, you're making me starved. I just ate dinner. I'm still hungry. Right? And you talk like a cheese person would when they're describing the process of making cheese and their cheese. You're not doing, which I hate to say it again, that many in this industry do, which is try to compare it against other things, which you have no clue what you're comparing against.
Yeah.
Or and then you're disappointed. So, oh, it could have been good, but you disappointed me. As opposed to going down the other path and just telling me the cool story. This is how it works. This is why it is a cheese. Get the word dairy out of your head. It's a cheese.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
no problem. What kind of cheese? Try it. And you tell me what kind of cheese is. Oh, this tastes like Parmigiano. This tastes like mozzarella. I don't care what it tastes. Oh, man, then we've got a story. Now I'm getting it.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly been the plan the whole time. And we have a library that's quite deep that we will be releasing over the next couple of years. And one of them includes a very boutique cheese we call the Beechwood, and it ages for 22 months.
How cool is that?
And it forms tyrosine crystals, just like a Parmesan Reggiano does. And
how cool is that?
Doesn't taste like Parmesan Reggiano, but it has that deep umami, and it can be used the same way.
But again, like, I don't need to I don't need the Parmigiano. I just need something similar to it at that point. And I want to sort of taste, and I want that feel, and I want that crumble.
Want that, right? You really
That's what I want. I mean, I want the Parmigiano, of course.
That, right? Is stop trying to form a name, because you form the name, and then all of a sudden there's an expectation.
Well, the expectation changes.
Like,
yes, exactly.
What it is, right? And then if it's,
I love it.
If it just takes off your tongue, who cares? Stop calling it something and just let it go, right? Like,
that's just it. It should be delicious. It should be satisfying, and it should make you care about it. And it's that whole process of learning about the history of that science and craft together. Right. And that's how people were doing these things, and these wonderful stories about how so much was an accident, like how Gorgonzola evolved because some people forgot about cheese in a cave. And how this relationship exists. Like, for me, that's the magic of it. And I didn't see how that couldn't also work with plant materials.
I think it totally works. I think what you do is you just do the same thing they do. Parmigiano is it only from one region. It's DOC over there. Yeah. It is what it is. And you do the same thing. We're not going to call Parmigiano, but your hard cheese that's got those type of characteristics is done this way. This is how you make it. No other shit in it. This is what it is. This is how it's going to be. That's it. And you stay to those standards. Now we got a great cheese. And
that's been the foundation. That's been the foundation of the approach for us. 100% that has been the
I'm loving you on this one. So. You're beautiful. This is fun. You're a smart woman. You got this whole thing figured out, man. That's a good way to do it. Wow.
Listen, if you're a retailer, bring this thing to Ontario.
Seriously.
For the love of God. Like,
let's make sure we supply BC first. Ontario's got a lot of stuff. Always Ontario.
Right next door to you. What are you talking about? Like, stop being so selfish.
We're ready. We're ready for this. I shot an episode with Offram Pristine from the Cheese Boutique on that series he did with the Cheese, a Love Story. Unfortunately, they didn't, my episode didn't air, or my part of the episode didn't air, but it was really great interacting with someone who has such a history, whose family's been in cheese for so long, and getting to have that moment where he also was like, we're having a conversation about cheese, and we're having the same conversation.
He must have been thrilled, like thinking, like, this is cheese talk. Doesn't matter what the ingredient base, doesn't matter what the base was, whether sheep, goat, pea, it's not relevant. It's a cheese. Yeah. We're talking cheese.
Yes.
How cool is that? Good for you.
And so for me, that's the magic of it, and the science. Like the science part is the magic.
Brilliant. The first people figured that out with meat or plant-based meat. That's where the winner went. I know things have done well and stocks have done well. Yay team. Quite frankly, again, not a vegan, whatever. The only thing that I've really crossed over really well, is I don't want to say because it's you here, but it is your cheese, because I think it's been the closest thing that I've actually found to be the category it is. I don't care what you never told me what you were trying to be. You said cheese. Yeah. Okay, I get cheese. This cheese, I didn't like that one, but I like that one. Yeah, because I like that. Same with cheese. Any cheese, I don't like all cheeses. I hate blue cheese. No, I don't care what they are.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Not everybody likes all the So when people will come and say, "Well, is it cheesy?" I'm like, "But what kind of cheese
does cheesy
do you like?"
mean to you?
Yeah, what does cheesy mean to you? And then we can have a conversation, because cheesy doesn't mean a single set of things by any standard.
Cheesy means to me Hawkins. That's what I think cheesy.
Yeah, you're right. Like
Hawkins. That's cheesy.
Exactly. And so I often think people define how they understand cheese based on their experience.
Sure, but that's how you do everything, and that's why you can't. If you understand, it's why like a lot of the non-alcohols or even those things didn't play well, because you didn't understand the process of what you were trying to mimic. Like if it starts from the same base and it's the same mechanics and chemistry, then it's going to result in a very similar thing, no matter what the base is. So when Phil comes to Vancouver, because I'm here anyway, and I won't do this to Phil. So when Phil comes to Vancouver, do we get a tour? Can we come visit you? I would love to come see you. I would 100%. Love it.
We would love to have you guys.
Oh my God.
I would love
we'll
to
do another recording at the place. I think seriously, I'm so sold on this approach. Brilliant.
I'm like, thank you. I'm thrilled because for me, I think it's because there are pockets of us really trying to build this approach out in the world. Like I interact with a lot of high quality producers in Switzerland and Tasmania, and so there's something evolving that's very unique in this arena, but where people also really care about the cheese part of it.
Because then you're going back to Karen, so what we talked about, because a pea shoot or pea pod or whatever you're using that's grown in New Zealand is different than the one grown in Vancouver, and it's just different than the one in the Alps. So now that process, as long as you guys can do what cheesemakers do, the same process in 3 different countries gives me 3 different results of a really cool cheese.
And how
doesn't have to be the same. I don't want them the same.
No, and that's so similar to like if you brought 10 makers of camembert from different parts of the world together, all of those camemberts are going to taste different.
I hope so, because all the milk should be different, all the grass was different, everything's the process should be identical. But that's what I want to taste. Like if you're going to use nuts from wherever part, I want to know. Like I want to be able to taste that grass from an alpine hill in Switzerland. Or I don't care where it's from, like, whatever you're using.
Because what you're saying there is so interesting, because we were having a conversation with the tech people from Lactalis, actually, and everybody is so focused on whatever's happening on the plant-based side needs to be super neutral. And I was like, you only say that because your life has been built around the flavors of animal milk. But if it had been reversed, you wouldn't think that was neutral. You would be like, oh, that's what that is. Like that stands out. That has a notable thing.
But gamey or whatever right?
But that's why goat milk is different than sheep milk, which is different than young cow versus old cow. And why Parmigiano comes from one region of Italy, because the grass is different, the air is different, the mountains are different, the soil, like everything's different. But plants are the same.
And the cows that produce the milk for Parmigiano are only allowed to eat a very specific diet.
Right, and they're only the white cows too. Like you can't use the brown cows. You can't do that. It's because then the DOC gets, no, that's not Parmigiano now. It might be Parmigiano-like, but it's not Parmigiano-Reggiano. Really? Oh, 100%. Well, it's like with San Marzano tomatoes. When you see trillions on the shelf, San Marzano is like the area of a stamp. There's nothing there.
Yes.
You can't grow enough tomatoes for the amount of tomatoes that are called San Marzano.
Exactly.
No different than cheeses. That's why I think this is so cool. Because if you can start, pulling apart like whatever you're using as a base, whether it's mushrooms or from I don't know, whatever you guys use for this, whatever you guys need to use. But how cool if we can start pulling the components of that so that you know that if it was a mushroom base and it's a mushroom New Zealand, it's different than the American one.
Yeah.
And different than the Chinese one and different than the Italian one. Like, wow, like now the categories exploded within the same subset.
Exactly. And even though cashews are still very dominant in vegan cheese making because they're a very easy ingredient to work with.
That's easy, right?
But there's so much variation amongst them. So the cashews that we still use are Brazilian. And we had tested ones from Sri Lanka and from Vietnam and from Laos. And we landed on Brazilian because the results we were getting were so very specifically different from the other one.
But they should be. It's a live entity. It's going to be, coffees are different, tobaccos are different. Like, pick a commodity.
And yet somehow in this sector there's been an expectation.
Phil, we're going to visit. We're going to go hang out there for the day.
Exactly.
I'm really hungry. I want to go up and get.
Can we bring wine? It's wine's okay, right?
It's in fact required.
Is it required? Oh my God, I'm loving you even more.
Yeah. We really do. We do wine and cheese pairings or beer and cheese pairings. We do make a cheese in particular that pairs very, very well with IPA and saison.
I don't know if I've ever had beer and cheese like really like mentally. Wine, I mean, not wine and cheese I get obviously, but
we make a couple that pair super well with beer.
I don't know if I've ever really done a pairing with beer. Phil, maybe. I don't think I have.
You know what?
Interesting.
At one point in my life, I worked for a French company, and so one of their favorite things to do, it was slightly traumatic for me because we went to taste all these cheeses, and it was in this dark cellar in some corner of like the eastern townships outside of Montreal, and so they were all terribly excited, and I was kind of like I really love cheeses, but you know, if you're gonna pull out some of that stinky stuff, I'm not sure.
No.
Like, the unpasteurized stuff, I'm not sure. And then, like, I'm Asian. There's only so many cheeses I can eat before I start killing people. Like, it's just not a thing, right? Like, and so all of that was slightly traumatic because I was like, but I had a lot of fun. Like, the same thing, right? Like, I got some wine, I got some beers. There's some, like, you know, but I lost track. Like, I must have tried, like, you know, somewhere to the tune of like 30 or 40 different cheeses. I didn't know what I was eating. I was like, okay, that's stinky. I'm not going near that one. But I tried this one.
Yeah, I'm good. There's areas you go and areas you don't. Very cool, Karen. Regardless, I think your approach is fantastic. I think your ideas. I mean, wow, what a cool way to approach. Seriously, I mean,
like,
wow.
I guess I have some. Just I think the other questions for me is like, so where do you see this going from here? Like, do you hope that this is something like, so one is you seem to be making some amazing flavors that I think are going to really set you apart. Do you kind of see yourself commercializing that way? Like, do you ever see yourself in like, you're in Save On and a bunch of places like this. So do you see yourself in a Loblaws coming right across the country?
Phil's fishing for the retailer. Can you see that?
Well,
no, I'm not. I am, but I'm not. Like, we still care about retail. So I'm more curious because quite easily your flavors could live in very exclusive places, right? Because
you could be in the cheese sets where you should be next to it. Give me an alternative to. Give me just another chease. Like I don't need a dairy alternative. Just give me a different cheese.
And so that's such a great question. So when we got approached by Save On Foods last year, they invited us to all of their stores. So not the typical, here's 15, try it out. And that comes with its own set of like, okay, we've got a ride now. Let's sort this out.
Start making cheese. Make a lot of it.
A lot. Exactly. While you're
180
still building
stores is a lot, eh?
And while you're still building a plant. But they were very intentional in that what Save On's trying to do is create space in their deli section where the deli cheeses are for vegan cheese, and so
why not?
We were the first one, and so there is work to do to like really get people to go, oh, okay, that's where I should go to get my plant-based or my vegan option, and also get the non the other audience as well. But they've now introduced a couple others, and it's starting to gain some traction, which is really cool. We're now in Safeway, and we are really looking to launch nationally with Sobeys.
Good for you.
We've initiated conversations with Loblaws. We have a very deep product library. And when we still had the Main Street store, we would release a lot more of it more often. And now we're just scheduling it different. But so we have some very easy, we have a couple of cream cheese style cheeses that we produce right now, like our herb and garlic and our sort of Mexican inspired one. That are sort of the first entry, but we're releasing in July a cheese that we currently call the Mustarda cheddar. It's getting a new name coming, but it ages for a minimum of 4 months, and it's washed with a grapefruit mustarda, and it's firm, and it slices and it grates, and it's its own very unique thing.
It's cheese. It's just a dairy-free cheese.
It truly, like,
it's just cheese.
I just sampled the latest batch today, and I was like, oh, I am happy with that.
That's good.
So there's room for like, we make some things that are a little bit more like, okay, gateway easy, and then we make some. So we're absolutely pursuing mainstream retail, but we're also still like we're still wanting to be part of the shelves of the boutique shops, where, because we've been getting requests for quite a long time, like from specialty cheese stores in New York and specialty cheese stores in Manitoba, and places you wouldn't really expect to hear from people.
But Karen, you can manage that, because you got a strategy now. You could do you could do mainstream, like every day, where, but some cool cheeses, and then in specialty, just give them their own stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Well, these are specialty shop. That's where you buy them. That's it.
Yeah. And that's about production planning and scheduling, for sure. Right?
Absolutely.
So wine industry creates lots.
Absolutely.
So Beechwood, our 22-month age cheese, for instance, if we plan that out, it could be, this is the number of units we'll have ready.
Yeah, there's 500 pounds, and that's all we're getting.
And that's all you're getting, and whoever buys it, or the people that you get it from. That's it. That's how that works.
And you know what? And just so you guys know, it's not going to be in mainstream. We're putting this as specialty, because you want to help that group out. Because again, it pushes me to go. If I do that with wine. I do that with certain booze. Yeah. There's lots of things I go to specialty for. And to be frank with you, if I saw it in mainstream, I probably wouldn't like it as much as I did 10 minutes ago.
But that, right? Because the psychology of that thing.
Absolutely. It was special.
Exactly. So we do have a sort of a dual plan to like launch our mainstream things in the mainstream places, but the boutique things have a home too.
Absolutely.
And so that's more about coming down to how do we plan things and how do we schedule that activity.
Now, how you package things, and there's ways to play the game, right? That's
exactly. Retail. And a large part, people like being the ones who discovered something.
100%.
like they found it and it's theirs, and they're part of that story now. And so for me, in terms of the people that have been a big part of how we even got to step into Lumi, like our early adopters, let's say, they've been a really enormous part of that. Like that discovery phase and that engagement phase, they've been incredibly important to us.
Wow.
Yeah, I believe it.
What a great story.
Wow, what a wonderful story.
What a smart approach. Like, seriously. I mean, that's good for you. That's what a great approach.
You know, like Kenny and I, when we're not recording and we're not kind of like, kind of looking at stuff in retail, food is.
I love food. I just love food. I could eat all day, every day. I love food. I love eating.
Half the time I'm talking.
Love cooking.
He's cooking something. If he's not cooking, I'm cook. Well, because we're 3 hours apart, so. One of us is eating a meal, one lunch, some breakfast, then it's breakfast and brunch and dinner. It's all over.
And then we get calls at 5:30, 6 o'clock. I turn the computer. I'm cooking dinner. You don't want to watch me cook, then you shouldn't call me at 5 or 6 o'clock.
Exactly.
I'm busy.
Wow. Well, I have some friends, we do cooking dates on Zoom, where for our friend's birthday a couple years ago, we actually had a group of us all make pierogies together online.
Oh, that's cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's amazing.
Okay. So Phil, when you're coming back down, we're visiting, and we're bringing wine.
Okay.
You have to. You guys have to come by. and we'll have some good stuff to share because we've got some exciting things coming out of our R&D processes right now, and so I will be keen. I'll be keen to share.
Maybe get a hug, Phil. I don't know. Yay. We'll see where Karen's at. Well, no, it wasn't a hugger. We'll have to see.
She's got a green pin. I know.
Right. We're not gonna. Yeah, exactly. We're not gonna push it. But if she's got a green pin, we're still in the hug. Wow, that's pretty cool, Karen. Like seriously, that's what a great approach. What a very cool way to set yourself apart and really give this an actual chance to do what I think a lot of people have tried to do, and some have done it successfully or commercially. It appears, or stock wise. But quite frankly, the legs I sometimes question, because at the end of the day, it wasn't that good. I hate to say it, because it didn't live up to what it was supposed to be in my head. And I do think that yours, because I've had it, it's the right now that I even understand the approach, now I even like it even more, because now I know you and I know the story. Now I'm even more cooked on this thing. Like, I think this is such a neat way for me to have dairy cheese in the house and non-dairy cheese in the house, but it's cheese.
Yeah, because
that's how it's being served.
Exactly. It's just part of the spectrum.
What's going on the board is cheese.
And
if people ask what it is, I'll tell them, but this is made from this is made from that.
Yeah. That's been the whole premise.
Yeah.
Like when I set out to write the book, the first edition, that was sort of the underlying premise. And then I did the second edition, which is significantly a different book than the first one. But I really wanted to underscore that this is an evolving craft. Like, this is just like dairy cheese, but it got to have its roots in like small towns and high mountains.
They got a couple hundred year head start on you.
Yeah. Like for me, finding out like how old some of the like Gorgonzola was, like 1500 something,
right?
With its first time,
right?
Like, and the story of Camembert, like 1792, like the people who've been building on this knowledge and this craft have had hundreds of years,
right? But the science is the science, and I think that's the trick. Like, you did it from the right part. You got the science. So the mechanics are the mechanics. It is what it is. Now you got to find things that sort of behave in the same way.
Yeah.
But your taste profiles will be different. They'll be unique and they'll be for them, and it'll be wonderful.
Exactly. And it's not even the behave in the same way, it's behave in the way that amplifies the best properties of that material.
100%.
Because that, even with the animal milk, the same culture set that's used to make a goat cheddar isn't going to be the same exact set that makes a cow's milk cheddar.
Right.
Because the goat's milk has different properties than the cow's milk cheddar.
Yeah.
Exactly.
100%.
Yeah, their fats behave differently. The protein behaves a little bit differently.
What a smart way to look at it, though. Really, wow.
Yeah, it's that has been all of it's my favorite part, but that part there is always like that special sweet spot.
Okay, now I'm hungry.
Karen,
now it's cheese time.
Jeez,
thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on. Phil, stick around for a minute. Karen is really, really nice. If people want to get a hold of you or find you online, or if they have questions, not that you'll maybe answer everyone, but if they pester you, where do they find you?
So on Instagram, I'm at Karen8, like the number 8 MC. They can also reach us on Instagram at Blue Heron Cheese, or at Lumi Foods, Better Kinder. So there's sort of three ways to reach.
Perfect.
I won't share the email address because I just do, my inbox is very, very full right now. I feel really bad when I can't get back to things there. But on Instagram and DMs, I absolutely will do my very best to answer questions.
Awesome. What a treat. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that.
Okay. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening, guys.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. See, when you approach though, it's all this is, again, my vegan friends are going to hate me as usual, but this is why it doesn't work typically, because they didn't go the same mindset as her, as opposed to trying to make a specific or all the bullshit. She just made cheese. This is going to be like a cheese or cheese, the properties of.
It is cheese.
It is cheese. It's, like dairy cheese, I'll call it. But you're right. It's just cheese. I'm going to make cheese. Who cares what the base is from?
No, nobody cares.
Right? If it was from apple juice, I really don't give a shit.
The thing is if you want cheddar, go get cheddar, right? But if you want something different, then you can get something different.
I mean, if this kind of really catches on, it could change I mean, I'm thinking about like things. I'm Italian. We'd use a lot of cheese. Like think that all the things I have cheese in that potentially I would just sub this cheese for a different cheese, and not because I want to be vegan or anything. Because I'm thinking, well, that's a different taste profile. Maybe it's creamier.
At some point, you might say it's easier to get than the other one, right? Like
yeah, maybe
like all the supply issues that we're having, like
right.
maybe it's easier to get. Maybe or quite
maybe
frankly,
it just tastes different. Maybe it just tastes better than the other one.
It's got a different flavor, and when I add that, I get a different interaction. That
I haven't been able to find that flavor in a dairy cheese. I can now find it in my non-dairy cheese. My cheese, I've got an alternative. Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I think she's brilliant. I think her whole approach is so smart.
I think it's amazing.
So smart.
Honestly. Makes me.
That's how you turn an industry upside down.
She literally did. So I didn't know she was a sci-fi person, but if you kind of think of like, and this I don't know if our listeners will forget or whether I'm geeking out, but you think of like the Star Trek franchise, and then this new set with Chris Pine. They literally did this sci-fi thing because they like Star Trek has been done and overdone and done again, and then this time they went, yeah, but you know what? We're just going to introduce a new time dimension.
How cool
which
is
is
that?
a very sci-fi thing to do, right?
Right.
But as soon as I do that, it allows me to I now have full freedom to do whatever I want.
Well, it doesn't matter what I do.
That timeline, right?
Right.
And that's exactly what she's done now.
I agree.
She said, I got it. So the only thing here is I'm using cheese principles
and the flavor will be just a new cheese flavor. Well, this doesn't take like Parmigiano. You know why? Because it's not Parmigiano.
It's not. It's not.
This is like whatever cheese we decide to call it.
Maybe, but it's something totally different.
Yeah, the properties might be, it's a hard cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah, it grates well.
Yeah.
Maybe if you want Parmigiano, go buy Parmigiano. This cheese, it tastes like this cheese.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it's, I mean, you've got at least, you got some odds of converting people like me.
Yep.
Because I'm the cynic at the show, because it's usually my vegan friends all dragging me over. Oh, this tastes just like chicken. I think, fuck, you've never had chicken. And if you had chicken 20 years ago, what do you remember what chicken tastes like?
You know, the one
just so you know, this isn't chicken.
Bacon, right? The one that sets me off is bacon. Like,
come on, bacon is bacon.
They're like, oh, chicken bacon. I'm like,
no,
bacon isn't bacon. I'm sorry, right?
It's like, not pork bacon. Is pork bacon. That's it.
Pork bacon and
it's pork bacon.
They are not.
A pork rib's different than a beef rib. I'm sorry, they're different things. I hate
to tell you, they are not the same thing. Like they don't taste anything.
Exactly, they're not even close.
Chicken bacon for what it is, but pork bacon, oh.
Yeah, you know why I eat chicken bacon? Because I want chicken bacon.
Yeah.
If I want bacon, it's got to be pork.
No, it's pork bacon. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, it's got all the fatty bits in it that like. Yeah.
Now, if you can make me a really good plant-based bacon that tastes like something just good, just don't tell me it's like pork bacon, I might have a crack at it. Not likely, because I can't go too far with bacon.
We actually, so at the show, there were a handful of brands that were starting to go down that route. Like the guys that Rattan took us to. What
was the one that we had that shredded? It was in essence, it actually tasted and sort of textured like a shredded pork. It's actually quite tasty. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I thought that, and they used the word shredded protein, right? I think is what they said.
Yeah, I guess my head, I thought I knew what they were doing. It was supposed to be a pork, but I did what you did. I shredded protein, okay, plant-based, no big deal. But then, because I'm not, it was really good. I really enjoyed that.
Like that was a moment that you kind of went,
yeah.
And then the other one, the guys that I like the chocolate milk from the Not Co.
The one you didn't bring to me, the one you said you're going to go get and you never did. Yeah. That one. Okay. Yeah. I don't remember that one clearly as well as you might, Phil Chang. Sharer. Honestly.
You know what? Just go get some blue herring and get over it.
Okay. Move on. I got to go. I talked to you too much today.
I'm never getting blue herring. It's coming, but.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody fucking pick this up. Like if you're
the next time you come, we're going to go see her.
Yes, yeah.
We'll go bring a nice bottle of red and a nice bottle of white.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do some cheese things. Like I'm stoked.
I love it.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us again. What episode is this?
2
something? 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 4,
no,
2, 3.
That's an awkward.
Oh, geez,
because we're
oh my god,
we got so many. Yesterday we produced, which was the Made Local.
Oh, Mamma Mia.
But we have a few in between.
Yeah, this might be like 238.
So this might be 238 or 239, maybe.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there. Yeah.
All right.
You guys will be listening to this almost 4 weeks after.
Yeah.
We recorded. Yeah.
All good.